Hi everyone, my name is Beata Wilczek and this is Fashion Knowledge, a podcast educating, disrupting and shaping fashion futures. Fashion Knowledge is brought to you by Unfolding Strategies, a consultancy and education lab for digital, inclusive and sustainable fashion in Web3. Hi, welcome everyone. Today I have a pleasure to talk to Elizabeth Bigger, a Fashion and Technology Practitioner focusing on climate impact, arts, and pioneering technologies. She's a co-founder and co-director of Datable Studio, which has developed CAD fashion analytics systems, 3D body databases, and wearable computing projects, just to name a few. To me, Elizabeth is one of those people who have been working with technology and fashion for a very long time and has a very valuable overview and experience of how it has been changing and developing. We met during Elizabeth's online workshop about clean NFTs and local fashion production. At the time, I was really searching for people working at the intersection of blockchain, sustainability, and fashion, and I was beyond excited to discover her work. And I think it's really urgent to talk about tech and climate in fashion simultaneously. And Elizabeth, as you are an expert in bridging the two in your practice, I'm very happy we have this opportunity. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for such a lovely introduction.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for making such a great work that it's so easy, to do it. So maybe let's start with talking about what is actually that you do and what does it mean to be a, computational fashion designer, because you have over a decade of investigating and implementing advanced computational tools in digital fashion design, fabrication, production. So I can imagine that all those conversations we have today about tech and innovation fashion that's been accelerated in the last 2 years are not new to you. So yeah, what is it like today to be a computational fashion designer?
Well, I think it's pretty invigorating these days, I must say. It's been, you're correct. It's been a long time. And there's been such a small group of us. And then now it's really expanding, which is really exciting. For me, being a computational fashion designer or practitioner means I use computation in two ways. I use computer skills both in the design of the pattern layouts and as well as the details and physical attributes of the piece, but then I also might use computational elements within the actual garment as far as hardware and electronics. I've slowed quite a bit on wearable pieces as far as wearable technology, but it was kind of integral in how I began my practice and how I now integrate bespoke practices within my pieces and my workflows. I began as a trained tailor, and when I was 19, I was an apprentice for several years, and since then, so I have a very traditional construction and tailoring background, and moving through that, I guess when I was in university, the computer programs we had were Photoshop and Vectorworks, and then around 2007 or so, I started doing wearables for a costume for special effects pieces, and this was enjoyable. But then also we went kind of beyond that and started really using elements beyond just putting LEDs and shoving electronics into clothing, but programming. So all of our pieces had mobile apps that you could take pictures and make different textiles. And become customized in some way. And that those workflows really started to create this very interesting kind of pattern for our clients that we worked with. So over about 8 years, we would go from body scan all the way through 3D rendering from about 2012 to, about 2019. And then all the way to final garment, whether it included electronics or not. Some were just, let's say wedding dresses or something like this. But
Did you do wedding dresses?
Oh yeah.
Really? That's funny. So can you give an example? What was a project like that, just to imagine it?
I mean, if you want to go with the wedding dress, you start by
just curious.
body scanning of the person, and then you begin sketching out different iterations digitally. And I use Rhino 3D. It's a CAD software program developed by Robert McNeil and Associates, and so I use patterns, and I use parametric patterns that I've also created computationally in Grasshopper, and it's a visual scripting language program. So then you start applying these designs onto the 3D body, and I particularly liked using body scanning because it was as bespoke as you could get. I mean, now I think you can get made up characters and you can buy 3D models. 10 years ago that was not possible, and so we did quite a bit of body scanning and post-processing work to have our own figures, and then also be able to animate them and things like this. So yeah, then you do several designs, and I'd do about 6 months worth of design iterations with the client, and then go straight into fabric. Sometimes I would, sometimes it would be a juxtaposition of old tools and techniques versus new tools and techniques. And it was always kind of a learning curve, combining traditional tailoring skills with what works computationally, and also what you're comfortable with, what you begin understanding. Sometimes you don't need a muslin mock-up. And sometimes, you might feel more comfortable doing a bit of a mock-up before you go into final fabric, depending on your choices and stuff.
Cool. I asked about the wedding dress because I was looking today at one fashion NFT, and it is like it's a collaboration between artist and founder, and I think Puma. So it's like a sportswear brand, and it's like an upcycled wedding dress. And I was thinking that this is like always an interesting clash of wedding dress having this like cultural symbolic and this kind of being something quite traditional, but then bringing it into and making it into NFT. And I was like thinking, why the wedding dress? So it's funny that you also brought up a wedding dress, but maybe we can jump into NFTs. So kind of acknowledging your history, and I'm happy that we also heard about the process, how it works. Today, I think when people think in context of fashion about NFTs, they think of brands. So it's either a digital native or digital only brand like Fabric Under Me doing an NFT, or I don't know, a bigger brand like Gucci or Nike. And I'm curious, how do you define what NFTs are, and kind of how do you use them in context of your work in fashion?
Good question.
Thank you.
I definitely use them as part of kind of pieces of the workflow, and kind of decentralizing this kind of workflow of the fashion I guess output. So in that sense, I don't necessarily follow the traditional make a really beautiful editorial picture and sell it as a JPEG or PNG or an NFT in that regard. But I like to use them as kind of changing or disrupting kind of that system. And so the pieces we've done, if you're able to buy we did one in March 2021. That was our first experiment and this one was early days. So it was just how to do systems of, not just fashion, but then how do we get the pattern pieces, the construction pieces, to the person to buy it, in order for them to be able to make it somewhere locally on their own. So they would have something physical if they wanted it. At the same time, they would also have the GLB, the 3D interactive file. And so that was really interesting. And then we went ahead and really wanted to do collaborative. And so that's what we've been working in now. And so when you get a piece, the royalties are split between perhaps the textile designer, the pattern designer, which would be myself, and different open software systems that we use, maybe 3JS, things like this, so that we can extend kind of the people and the hands that are actually responsible for making the piece of fashion to be able to get royalties from it continuously.
Cool. So they have a different kind of function that is more in that sense. The focus is less on the aesthetics and being a piece of a kind of potentially collectible or wearable digital clothing. It's more about kind of what they can do, what they can transmit, what they can share, and also kind of how they split royalties and kind of co-create value for all the people involved.
Yeah, I mean, you can say like, oh, the blockchain is great for transparency, but it depends on what you want it to show. Anything I guess you could claim would be transparent, but I would like to see the hands actually get paid that are responsible for making fashion. So what does that actually look like? And is it possible that it could be that there is something, kind of a decentralized fashion system out there that can go from like global design to local production in a reasonable way? So that's what... that's some of the things that we've been experimenting with, and we went ahead and published a paper on it at an apparel and textile conference in Paris, and then we went ahead and published that. We minted that as an NFT, and also once again did the royalties where we split. So some of our references were able to get royalties from the paper as well.
Yeah, that's to me, that's very exciting, and to think that if we think about fashion system also kind of being a big part of it, being fashion research, then the paper which is minted as an NFT, which is about fashion, also becomes a part of like fashion NFTs kind of ecosystem. So maybe it's a bit of a stretch, but I find it quite interesting that we start thinking about fashion NFTs not only in this kind of now a bit mainstream way of thinking about it.
Yeah, and sharing knowledge about that, I've written so many papers that are behind really expensive paywalls, especially in computational garments. And so, so this is not, and, anyone could pick it up for 0.5 TES. It's not expensive or see it on the IPFS. So that's also, I think, important to kind of for a future goal of decentralized fashion and really spreading word and knowledge is making the research available.
Yeah, that's true. But speaking of spreading knowledge, I'm very often times asked if digital fashion is sustainable. So I thought this is maybe something we can talk a little bit about, what are, how do you use the term clean NFTs? To me, if there are clean NFTs, that immediately implies there might be also dirty ones. So what is the difference between clean and dirty, and why do we say that? Also, you've been doing some amazing research, and you've been asking great questions about digital fashion production lifecycle. So yeah, maybe if we could talk a little about that would be amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think, clean NFTs, kind of this phrase began in early February, March, I think actually as early as December. Two artists, Memo Atkin and Joanie Lamercier, have written extensively and started up with calculations and things like this to kind of bring awareness to the NFT art community about the environmental footprints of NFTs and what that entails, kind of their carbon costs. And that's kind of taken off since then. Now it's been past a year of this, so it's caught on. Many other researchers have been involved, and I'm not sure, if clean NFT is the best phrasing, or not. There's a dramatic difference, of course, in the environmental footprint of anything that is minted on a proof of stake chain versus a proof of work chain. But I also think that almost everything humans do is dirty. So how do you really delineate between the two? Is it fair to say dirty NFTs or clean NFTs? I'm not entirely sure that, a semantic discussion, but for sure we should, there's no real room or time to not be knowledgeable about sustainability and about your actions using technology in the future of fashion. it's just unacceptable these days. Whether you're in academia or you're a practitioner or you're a giant brand, there has to be a wheel turning somewhere for you to be improving your footprint. So in that regard, is clean the right word? I don't know, but if you're working, if you're working in the space, you should be knowledgeable about what that what that is. Just as if you're actively, creating collections out of 100% polyester versus wool, they're two huge different footprints between the two. So, so that's really important, I think, to kind of understand how that the sustainability, how that works, how the proof of stake, all these pieces. And it's really complicated. It can be really complicated. There's several great resources to really explain all the different footprints, but it's very much like finding out the life cycle of a piece of clothing, a pair of jeans. There's metal pieces, there's textile pieces, there's labor and construction. So there's all these different footprints that we create when we make garments. And that's the same for digital. And then if you make phygital, it's dual. So all those need to be added up in some way so that we can have accountability, but also be able to understand where we can take action. And if we can take action, what does that look like? And be cautious about that, because it could have a rebound effect that's worse. Right now the music industry has a worse footprint because it's gone digital than it did with physical vinyl cassette tapes and CDs. So that's a really interesting other industry example to take from. And in fashion, we don't want to have a rebound effect already. We have a wicked problem. We have to move forward to solving it. So what kind of tools can we actually use to actually help solving it and not create a larger footprint?
So what kind of tools and what kind of methods do you propose to solve it? And I'm kind of pointing out in direction of generative fashion. Like, maybe we can talk about this. Is this like a way to go?
I think I'm working on analysis systems. In the last 3 to 5 years, I've been building generative garment systems. And it's really for analysis. Generative design, of course, can be used for aesthetics. Could
you explain, just briefly, what it is? Because it's common. It's a common thing to discuss among architects or industrial product designers. But somehow, very often with fashion people or people interested in fashion, is not the most common thing.
Well, there's several different types of generative design, but I use...
Let's go for a general umbrella, or the one is, closest to your practice.
What I use evolutionary algorithms. So they kind of observe, so they take your goal, what you're trying to answer for, and kind of compare and contrast different results to create a bunch of results. And nature does this evolutionary. This is how biology works, and how evolution has created different types of birds, for example. So in using generative design to try to address sustainability, your fitness function of your algorithm needs to be a specific goal to kind of help that, and then allow you to look at different goals at the same time. So you could look at the amount of textile waste. You could estimate effluents lost during the user care cycle of the garment, estimated wear times or durability of the construction of the garment. You could estimate microfiber release. And you can plug these different data points into your fitness function, and then have the evolutionary algorithm give you different design results. And some of them are, of course, completely something that humans would never consider wearing and out to lunch, but, and that's kind of the magic of playing with generative design at the moment, because you still really, there's this human machine situation where we really need to collaborate together And humans really have a part not only in that you're making the machine, you're teaching the machine, and then also the machine is teaching you what it is calculating, but then also what is acceptable actually in reality. And I think this is very similar to NFTs. But in this way, you can process and see in real time and use multi-objective optimization to really optimize for sustainability goals. So you're not designing or producing something that has a higher footprint than you want, and you're seeing that footprint prior to production. The design area is where all the decisions are made, so you can really control your footprint in the design in the first stage of a garment. And that can also be for digital. So it's how do you say and how do you input that? We're putting things online that now have lifetime digital footprints, right? All NFTs, we've pinned them to the blockchain. What does that mean to have a lifetime footprint? What does it mean for a proof of work chain? What does it mean for a proof of stake chain? Is that a higher footprint than a physical piece of clothing that's maybe made out of polyester and is on the planet for 4,000 years without biodegrading? So those questions, need to be answered yet. But using different pieces of data and getting early data from NFTs, we can start kind of looking at these different points and say, here's the difference between an NFT and in this, or also the difference between an NFT that changes hands several times versus one time, and perhaps compare that to secondary markets of fashion or rental markets. So these are all different systems that are really trying to work for sustainability. And how do we compare and contrast them using algorithms to kind of help us with the calculations?
And so when we think about those things, is this something that's being now, actively done by you and people you work with? Can we already see, examples that would be, feasible for industry? Let's say that I have a medium-sized brand. How can and I'm trying to do phygital. So how can I actually, start thinking about generative fashion?
I don't know. I'm not sure yet. We're making some public tools, but we're not quite there yet. So, I think it's also pretty complex. I feel it's taken so long for fashion to kind of understand computational tools in the first place, and we still have a long way to go. Academia still has a long way to go, and there are some more, experiments happening in other places, but I don't know if it will, how fast it will come. I think we're putting stuff out this summer, and so we'll see, I guess, in the future.
What does it mean that you're putting stuff out this summer? So is this like an event, or is it like, I don't know, some project, exhibition? What is it?
It's an exhibition and event. But we hope to have these tools exist so that people can use them, whether you're a small, medium, or independent artist, because I think that's the important point is to have publicly, kind of like the research, have it publicly available, have it open source, low code, no code, and have really nice usability, which something like that's going to take, a lot longer to, put out publicly, but
to scale.
We're getting there. Yeah.
But that's exciting. So where is the event? It will be an online event in summer, or what?
We'll see.
You'll see. Okay. Everybody keep an eye on it.
We're working very hard. We'll see.
Coming soon somewhere close to you online. Okay. Or not. Okay. So one other thing I would like us to talk about, and you also kind of mentioned before that, when we think about phygitals, it gets even more complex, because then we are thinking about, about digital footprints, we think about actual products. So when I'm usually defining phygital, and when people ask me what it is, I usually say these are products and experiences that are, blended. These are digital and physical at the same time. That, for example, I have a bag and I go to lunch with this bag to meet my friends, but I also have like a kind of, its version in the virtual version. So this is like, I think, the most simplistic way to describe it, but it's also very product focused. In your research, in your article, you kind of refer to digitals more even as processes and methodologies. So I'm also kind of similarly as with NFTs, like how do you see that, and what are like digitals in your work? What does that mean?
Well, I think there's like so many points along the workflows that I use that that blend those realities. I mean, you see it every time I scan someone and they all of a sudden see their body for the first time in 3D, and they begin to kind of understand what it means to be in a digital realm and a physical realm, and that's very much a phygital process. I think so there's several different points along that. And then also using systems where, these physical and digital, methods blend kind of, also brings this very non-transparent, linear supply chain system that we've used for like 200 years, into a different realm. And we can begin using and transacting digitally instead of, obscurely, mostly in, another country, as Westerners. So in that regard, I like to think of the whole process, several parts of this process as both, and it's about human machine collaboration. And these, digital pieces and physical pieces kind of merging together, in whatever this kind of, this digital universe that we want to create, that we want to craft. What does that look like? And can we create something positive, in merging these different techniques together? And can we do it sustainably? Because one always feeds off the other. We can't have the digital realm without the physical, and a little bit vice versa. So how can we do that? And how's the best way to make these points of human machine collaboration kind of come together to create a really nice, digital workflows and these kind of seamless things that include sustainability, that include positive outcomes for both humans and entities in the metaverse.
Yeah, amazing. I really agree. I can see many disciplines kind of jumping on that and creating, like music industry have a lot of amazing human AI collaborative projects, and I'm always looking forward to see more of that in fashion. So I'm really eager to see that. And you kind of almost anticipated my last questions, which was what type of projects and initiative fashion needs right now. So I think you kind of answered that. But yeah, I'm just curious to hear, what do you hope to see more of in the future, in nearest future, apart from your event in summer?
In the near future, I really want to see, I want to see more slowing down fashion. And I think that in that regard, I don't necessarily mean, in the digital realm, I mean, I want to actually see digital craftsmanship. And I, as a trained tailor and as years of building, as everything from clothes for celebrities to opera singers to, to wearable projects and everything like this, I feel that there's a lot more that we can do in the digital realm, and we're not using the tools that we have already available to their maximum capacity. So I really want to actually see a lot more from this terminology of what's being crafted as digital craftsmanship, and what that means. Right now I see a lot of things that don't necessarily move fashion past a JPEG or just a photo. And we have the tools and the means to do that. We also have the tools and the means to be very technical, to include our tech packs, to include details. So I'd like to see the slowing down of the minting process of the NFTs for a little bit more depth in fashion, a little bit more depth of craftsmanship, And hopefully I also would love to see the personalization and bespoke movement really take on, because whether we're making broad pieces, or bespoke pieces, there so many different things need to be considered, in regards to sustainability. And so I really need to see more from the design part of fashion, whether it's digital or physical.
Great, thank you. I'm looking forward to slowing down and more actual digital craftsmanship too. And yeah, the kind of bespoke element, I think, is also important. Thank you so much for talking to me today, Elizabeth. And I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen in summer.
Yeah, we'll see. Fingers crossed. Thank you, Beata.
Thank you.